Yes.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you all so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. As you mentioned, and hopefully everybody knows, we're going to be talking today about improving fundraising capacity with AI automation. Um, Let me just make sure we're here. So you already covered this, so I won't spend too much time, but just in my own words, Strat Labs, I'm the CEO and founder of Strat Labs. We are a social impact marketing and communications agency. And I started Strat Labs after I've been working in this world for since 2000. I started my career at United Way, actually, of Greater Los Angeles. And I have played or held a variety of roles within the nonprofit industry over the course of my career. And about 10 years ago, I was frustrated by the lack of marketing and communications that specifically supported fundraising. I often found that marketing communications was designed to promote programs, which is wonderful because it would tell the story of the organization and why the organization existed, but it didn't necessarily sell the product. It didn't help me do my job as development director, chief development officer, whatever it was, managing director, whatever role it was that I was playing. And that was very frustrating to me. So fast forward, and I started Strat Labs with the idea that we would build marketing communications to support fundraising efforts. You've already heard about me, so I won't spend any time here. But today, what we are going to be doing, I'm very excited about this, but we are going to be talking about how and where fundraisers lose time. I'm sure you all could start rattling those off in the chat pretty quickly. We're going to be talking about the difference between AI automation, um, AI, generative AI, and agents. So understanding what those technologies are, what they do, and how they function. And then we're going to be getting into real nonprofit examples of how that works and explore some practical ways. We'll do a workflow demonstration. We'll talk about ethical considerations. I think that is always at the top of people's minds these days, and it's at the top of my mind as well. And then we're going to be talking about your first AI agent and what that means. So before we get started, let me just move my screen around here. Give me 1 second, if you don't mind. Okay. Oops. Oh, no. Can you all see? How's that? Let me just do this. Okay. I think we're better off here. Okay. All right. So I have to apologize. My screens are a little goofy, so I'm going to be looking over my shoulder here, but hopefully that won't be too distracting for you all. And I just want to say before we get started, what would be really great is I want this to be interactive. So I want to be able to hear from all of you. If you wouldn't mind, feel free. You can unmute yourself. You can pop things in the chat. You can raise your hand. And Hillary, if you see something and I'm moving too fast, feel free to interrupt me. This is meant to be more of a workshop, less of a presentation. So we're going to be getting into some of that work. But in the meantime, just know that I would love questions. Feel free to stop me and jump in. All right, so we're talking about the problem
We
and the
can appreciate
solution
this.
here. There is a capacity problem. I think we can all agree. If you disagree, feel free to let me know. But fundraisers are really, you're hired to build relationships, not spend your day wrestling with spreadsheet systems, repetitive tasks. And what I'm seeing more than ever is that this is becoming the reality of most development professionals in this work. And so instead of being out there having conversations and building those relationships, you're helping with the operations of your organization. So we have done quite a bit of surveying and recently did a survey and found that 70% of fundraisers at smaller organizations, so that is 5 million and below, spend their time on administrative tasks. We were in most of their time, I should say the majority of the time, we were kind of shocked when we saw the statistic because I'm thinking, well, I think that's true, but then to see it and see everybody writing in and taking the survey was pretty shocking. So the average nonprofit loses about 10 hours a week just trying to make disconnected software and spreadsheets work together. So today we're going to be talking a lot about how to connect these things and using AI to do that. So nonprofits report wasting over 20 hours a week on manual admin and data entry instead of that mission-driven work. That is why we all have signed up to do this job. The high volume of the manual data entry and busy work is really contributing to burnout. That has been around since I was a development professional and starting my career. The number one reason I remember United Way did a whole report on this, that development professionals were leaving United Ways across the country was because of that burnout. And this was still the same at that time, which was 16 months. I remember at the time it was actually a little bit less, like 12 to 14 months was the average. This was in 2000 that development professionals were spending in their job before they were moving on. This was within the United Way network. So now what we're seeing is 16 to 18 months is the reality. And then you're moving on to the next role because the burnout is so great or the organizations are lacking. These are all things you know. I don't necessarily have to tell you this. So we're going to do a brainstorm today. And I guess knowing all of that and hearing all of that data, I would love for you to take a minute, just write down, what should AI do so that you don't have to? And then I'd love for you just to speak it. Tell us, what should AI do that you don't have to? And just take a minute really quick to write down, you do this every week, you never have enough time for this, and your biggest bottlenecks are this. And then we're going to share out. How many people, Hillary, are on the call approximately? It's hard for me to see the
30.
whole 30. Okay. So we may not get to everyone, but we're going to ask for some volunteers to share with us. But take a minute and write this down. And just look up when you're done, then I'll get a sense of where everyone is at. All right. So does anyone want to share out what you do every week, don't have enough time for, biggest bottlenecks? Maybe take 30 seconds. No real detail necessary, but just give us the kind of high level. Yes, go ahead.
Uh,
And you can just jump in. We'll
sure.
popcorn around.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I spend a lot of time, I'm a one-person development office. So I spend a lot of time on data entry, acknowledgement letters, updating the database, and putting together mailing lists, which all lessen the time I have available for donor visits.
Yeah. And all those things actually we're going to be talking about today that can be
Yeah.
solved with AI. Anyone else want to share? Don't make me
I
call on
will.
anyone. Okay,
I
great.
will.
Veronica, thank you.
I would just say one of the things that I think it would be very helpful for everyone in terms of usage is simple graphics on impact.
Thank
Um,
you.
that's that's a very needed area and one that takes a lot of time if you're actually spending your own time doing statistics and simple graphics for reports and things like that that you need.
Yeah, I mean, who thought when you started down this path in your career that you would also be a graphic designer? Anyone else?
I can jump in.
Sure,
Definitely donor
thank you.
profiles and meeting prep. I think that's an area where we end up spending a lot of time where AI has started to be really helpful for us. I think there's definitely considerations around privacy of information as well, but something that we're working with.
Okay, great. All right, well, if you have any other um, anything else you want to share, please pop them in the chat and everyone can kind of weigh in there. But here are some things that we hear from our clients. So every week, reports, thank you emails, copy and pasting things, CRM updates, research. Never enough time for stewardship, donor phone calls, strategy, major gifts, board cultivation. I'll add to the list handwritten notes. Those are handwritten notes are not something that AI can do. Biggest bottlenecks, approvals, content creation. We just talked about that, grant writing, reporting, volunteer follow-up. So this is what we're hearing consistently, and obviously everybody's having their own experience. Feel free to share if you want to add to this list. So we're going to talk today a little bit about the difference between AI, automation, and AI agents. If you have used automations, AI automations, and AI agents, can you just let me know in the chat, please? And if you don't know what those are, that means you probably haven't used them, so that's okay too. But I'd love to hear. All right, so understanding this technology, and tell me, this part can be a little heavy in terms of just the content. So just stop me if you have questions. Don't be shy. I'd love to hear from you. But traditional automation operates based on rules. So an example is every Monday, you're going to use an automation to send volunteers. That's supposed to say reports. I'm so sorry about that. Based on rules. Generative AI creates content. I'm sure that most of you are using generative AI. So an example is drafting a donor email. AI-powered automation, so not the traditional automation, which is every Monday it sends a volunteer report based on certain rules. But then AI-powered automation is a bit different. It combines a workflow and artificial intelligence. So what would happen is a new campaign would get added, AI would draft an email, and then it would save to a doc, and then it would alert the staff. So does that make sense where there's like a kind of a more robust, it's not just sending a volunteer report based on rules that you created maybe through your CRM, but it's doing it based on something that happened even before that. So let's say you all agreed you're going to launch a new campaign. It's going to be a volunteer-oriented campaign. So it's targeting your volunteers, but it's specific to fundraising. So it's trying to cultivate and move your volunteers from being just volunteers. How many people have people in their org that are just volunteers that never donate? So it's meant to sort of create that relationship. It will draft an email, it will save it to a document or a drive, and then it will alert the staff. Now, an AI agent is the next level up. That is making decisions and completing multi-step work, not without human oversight, but an agent is more autonomous. So it's more in depth than AI-powered automation, and it goes to the next level. So it may, in the background, review donor history. It may draft outreach. It may schedule follow-up tasks for other members on your team, or if you're a solo member, it may just do that for you, and then it will recommend the next action. Does anyone have any questions on that? I have to move off the slide because of the spelling error, so I'm going to do that now. So let me talk about this scenario. So let's say you're drafting a year-end appeal. I'm guessing most of you, raise your hand if you are using or have used generative AI to prompt ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using to generate the content for that year-end appeal. Who has done that in the past? I'm guessing most people have. Okay. And I see it in the chat that people are weighing in there. Okay, great. So then the next level up is, and you're going to hear me, you'll see things referenced in here, and we'll get to kind of what that looks like. But then the next level up is you're going to use AI-powered automation. So you get together as a team and you go in and you put the campaign into the project board. So let's say you're using a project management system. Is anyone on here not using a project management system? Raise your hand. Like a Asana, Monday. Okay, not using. That's okay. So project management systems typically function like a board meaning like it has your whole, it lays out the whole project. So when I say board here, but let's say you enter the project into Excel, which is really what it is. It just looks visually a bit different. So let's say you develop the campaign project with your team, you go and you enter it into Excel as so that you can see all the different steps. Then you have AI draft the campaign, the Google Doc is created. Marketing, if you have a marketing team, who here has a person or a team that works with them on marketing? Okay, a few of you do. Okay, not everybody. So then your marketing team or department, or if that's you, gets notified that this is ready. And then let's say an executive reviews it. Now, I'm making a lot of assumptions here that there's all these people in your process in terms of pushing content out. But assuming that some of you are from, one person development shops or don't have a marketing team, that's okay. I'm just kind of showing you what an AI powered automation may look like. Now we're going to go to the next level which is an AI agent. So the campaign is approved as a group. You have an agent already set up who knows your organization well, who knows your work, and we'll get into agents later on. The agent is going to review the campaign information. So maybe you upload the Excel spreadsheet that you created the campaign in with all the different dates. Maybe you just upload the notes from the meeting you had where you approved the campaign. You ask it to do a few things, including pulling donor segments for this specific campaign, or maybe you even lean into it and say, make the recommendations of which volunteers over the last 18 months we should pull into this campaign based on the direction that we want to head and the outcomes that we're looking for. It will give you ask for multiple versions. It will give you multiple versions of the campaign and maybe even multiple ways to approach it, channels on which to market it, communicate how you're going to communicate that campaign. It would suggest a schedule for sending emails or social media posts. It could create follow-up tasks, whether that's putting those follow-up tasks into an Excel spreadsheet, or if you use Slack, it can even, the agents now, the way they're built, they can connect to Slack. And then it waits for approval. So it doesn't do anything, but it waits for you to tell it what to do next. Has anyone used an agent in this way? If you have, please just let me know in the chat because I may come back to you later for a share out. Is anyone here a little overwhelmed by this content right now? Yes. Okay. Stay with me. This is a lot. I'm really just trying to lay the groundwork that this is bigger than just using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using to generate content. What we're trying to help organizations do is that because a lot of the people that we work with and the clients that we work with are coming from smaller shops, even if you're a large organization, we know that nonprofits tend to deprioritize the development department until you have enough money to hire more people. And as a result, you end up working very much in a silo, maybe with one or two people, sometimes alone. I know someone already said they're a one-person shop. And so what we're trying to show is that AI can be used not just to generate content, because we're beyond that in this AI journey. We all know that it can do that, and we've all been part of the prompting conversations and how important that is and prompt engineering, but it's gone beyond that right now. And right now we are moving into an era where nonprofits potentially could be falling behind because they're not using it in the ways the rest of the companies and corporate world are using it and how they're moving ahead so much faster. And so one of our missions here at Strat Labs is to help you with the tools that you need to start on that journey. Today, we are just dipping a toe in it. We are not going to necessarily set this all up for you today. It does take a while and it does require some systems, but it's to kind of open your eyes to what else is out there. So we are going to do a little exercise here. Would love for you all to unmute and be part of this with me. But I'm curious, based on everything that I'm saying, which technology fits for which of these things? So reoccurring monthly donor receipts. I heard someone say right in the beginning that they spend a lot of time doing that. I hear that all the time. Which of these AI processes could solve for that? You can pop it in the chat too if it's easier than unmuting. Automation. Correct. Great job, automation or agent. Actually, yes, agent too could do this if you had that set up. All right, grant research every Friday.
Agent.
You're right. Thank you. Was that Adrian? Did you say that? Okay. All right, lapsed donor personal outreach. Anyone know why AI workflow would be good for that? Anyone want to take a guess? Sure, go ahead. You can just unmute.
Because you would have a set of rules set up for it. Once they hit into the
Exactly.
lapsed donor, it would trigger the next action.
Exactly. So don't worry about the technical, how does that all happen? You're right. That's exactly right. We want to save you time and we want your expertise to be put into other tasks. So do you need to be scouring reports and building reports on who has lapsed, what years, and in what cadence? No, it should be set up ahead of time. The rules should be built. There's multiple steps involved, and then that will pull you into an AI workflow. All right, campaign email drafts. I'm waiting for someone in the chat. Anyone? Anyone? Yes. Generative and AI workflows. Anyone know why it would be both? Anyone want to take a guess before I tell you? Patty, you're ready. Go.
Generative, generative because you would use it for the content creation portion of it, and then the AI workflow for when you create the new campaign and plug that in.
Exactly. And also I would just add that in some ways, so the new campaign, let's say, is created, but let's say you want this campaign, it's no longer new anymore. Let's say the campaign is going to live forever. I keep referencing volunteers because this just came up yesterday with a client of how to move volunteers to become donors. And let's say you want that to be you want this campaign to live forever. It's going to be something that specifically targets volunteers, new and old. So anytime a volunteer comes into your organization, you can go back up. Let's say it's not called lapsed donor personalization outreach, just donor personalized outreach or volunteer personalized outreach. You can put a workflow behind that. So let's say they volunteer once. Well, great. Then an email goes out to them, a specific set of emails. Let's say they volunteer up to 5 times, and this time they brought their family, different set of emails goes to them. So that's where you get into some of that AI workflow. And also automation if we're getting into the nitty-gritty. All right, prospect research. I'll be waiting in the chat for you all. Don't make me call him Patty again. Automation, yes. Oops, sorry. I went the wrong way. So prospect research can be automation. I spoke a little too soon. However, it's best for an agent because it's something that is a learned behavior, the way you want them to conduct prospect research and the way you want them to get you ready for a potential meeting or an outreach or something like that. All right, meeting transcripts. I saw some AI note takers in this meeting. Great for an agent. Anyone know why I'm suggesting that be part of an agent task?
Because it could understand it and then filter it into other workflows.
Exactly. Because if you have an agent set up, it can take your meeting transcript, it can create tasks from it, it can make suggestions for next steps, it can create follow-ups, drafting the follow-up. So it has a little bit of that more autonomy. And so putting your meeting transcript into your AI agent, or not, you don't even have to, a lot of times it should just be set up. If you have an agent set up, they can be in the meeting with you. And then they can draft all of this information that you need afterward. That one I know can be a little scary, and we'll talk about privacy and ethics in a minute. Action items from a meeting, AI workflow and agent. So the agent is capturing things, but then it can go into an AI workflow and that can help you, it can trigger things. So it's like if there's certain things that come out of the meeting and you have a workflow set up, then it's going to be triggering off tasks, sending it to the people who need to see it, not necessarily even external. This is more internal within your department or within your organization. Gift acknowledgement letters. Which
Workflow. Is that a workflow?
It could be actually. I have it in automation because when someone makes a donation, I want that letter out the door right away. But the truth is that you could put a workflow in place because you probably could add a few other steps in there. A handwritten note, depending on the level of the donation, setting up a meeting, a coffee date or a lunch or something, inviting them to an event that maybe they're not planning to attend. So there could be some other elements in there, but I guess that would flow after the gift acknowledgement letter. But if we're just talking about the letter itself, we would want to automate that so that we can take that task off your plate. So for the annual report narrative, I think we all know generative AI, but if your agent is really well trained, your agent will be able to make some really nice suggestions around the narrative that needs to be crafted for the year. I remember like sitting at my desk year after year trying to figure out what story are we going to tell. And by this point, it was probably October or November, and we didn't have a great impact story. And I was stressing out and I'm thinking, how are we going to do this in time to get it out the door? So if your agent is listening or you have even a task set up for them that says, at the end of the year, I'm going to have to pull together an annual report. Let me know as we go, what are some of the things that you're hearing or themes that you think could be a good report or a good way to frame this? All right, any questions on that? All right, so just to kind of back up a little bit, you already shared the bottlenecks. So could this simply be automated? Is that a task that can be automated? This is the way I want you all to think about things. Does AI help? Would an agent be overkill? So that's why I did this exercise because, not every task that you have in development is going to need an agent. That may be overkill. I have my Claude open at all times, and sometimes I'm just in there typing away, and I don't have everything automated, and I don't work within my project management system. I'm working outside of it. So I want you to really just kind of think about this, as it relates to your bottlenecks. Could it be automated? Could AI help? Would an agent be overkill? And do you just need to chat with Claude on it? So those are kind of three things you could think about. All right, we are going to get into some of the tech and ethics. And this I do want to be participatory. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting, I would like people to share before we get into this. What are some things that you're sitting with around the ethics of AI? Anyone want to share?
Well, we're
Please,
dealing with donor information on a daily basis, so I'm not wanting to put any personally identifying information or anything related to their giving in a source that goes out into a public realm. Even if it's a private account where it's not getting spit back out, I just don't want to do any of that, and that's a policy that we have here.
Okay. Adrian, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think about, the automation is great, but I think about the environmental impact of using these tools is one thing, and I also think about my staff and am I, some of these things, would it replace them or the need for the staff? And, I care about my people. So, so that is a little bit of a balance that you know, we we are thoughtful about.
Great. Yes, absolutely. What else?
I worry that we are all going to start sounding the same, right? That we're all kind of trying to find the words and tell the stories, and by using an AI, um, you know, it sort of all kind of comes out the same in the same language. How do we keep our unique voice? And then just another kind of real world example is from a note-taking perspective. AI will pick up things in a conversation and make it sound like it was substantial in a meeting when it was actually just an offhand comment. And I've run into, a good example is when I was talking with a colleague about a body was discovered in upstate in Westchester County. And all of a sudden we got our AI notes back, and it was like her and I were the ones planning on, the body. We were like, oh, whoa, that's really powerful. Like we were just bantering back and forth, right? So just being very careful when there is something listening to your conversations. I know that's a trend that's happening. I'm getting more and more AI bots kind of coming to our meetings even. Just being careful about what it's picking up.
Yeah. I have yet to hear a story like that. That is sort of hilarious. Anyone else?
Well, authenticity, but from a different perspective. The voice, I think if you do enough prompts and you give it enough context and adjectives, it adjusts to what you're looking for. But authenticity in terms of I don't want it picking up other people's ideas from the internet. And and then, how sometimes AI, when you use it for a search, it'll pick up on a stat and it sounds like it's important enough, but unless you go clicking through and you find it, it could have just been the caption on a photo. It could have been something minuscule that didn't really have enough substance for you to use. So, or it's sort of a footnote on a footnote on a footnote, and um, that part concerns me, especially
Yeah.
when we're talking impact and comparison, writing grants.
Yeah. And that's definitely an issue with generative AI and something that is going to be an uphill battle, which is in some ways why we're kind of talking about some of these other ways to use it and to kind of think about that being obviously it's going to help you for sure, but that is a real concern. Amy has a question or a comment.
Yeah, also security and like trust with the vendors because one internal conversation we've had is, well, all these companies they say that our data isn't being used to train the AI, but how much sensitive data, like what degree of sensitive data do we really trust feeding them? Because, things can go wrong. Or some of these companies haven't been around long enough, and now they're getting sued by other companies, right? Like OpenAI is being sued by Apple for breaching their contracts. Anyway, but and then also even with Google Gemini, even though they're clear on their policy, supposedly clear that they're not that your Gemini data has the same protections as your workspace data, there can still be accidental leaks within the organization. Like it won't be leaking data outside of the organization, but things that like one employee isn't supposed to have access to, like it could accidentally share. So it kind of sometimes feels like the Wild West, and we're not really sure how to handle this.
Absolutely. Valid point. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I would add that the technology is throwing things at us faster than we can really adapt. And it's not always clean and of high quality. And one of just a very, very brief example is through our Razor's Edge NXT, there's an automatic address updater and a relationship updater, and it mismatches people just at the very basic level. I have a son named Michael Conti. It's a relatively common name, and in my record got attached to a different Michael Conti living in a different state who's 30 years older than my son, and it was entirely mismatched. So Maybe it comes down to really training staff and getting into every tool that is thrown at us, and what is, what the policies are around the use of those tools. But I just don't think we can keep up with that. So
Yeah,
that's
no, that is fair. I mean, just on a basic level, I recently told my Claude to stop giving me so much feedback in their response. In its response, I said to shorten it by 70%, which was actually really helpful because then it just gives me like a truncated version. Just a tip. All right, well, feel free to please put some other concerns you have, and I'm going to try to address all of them. I'm not here to convince you otherwise because I actually agree with all of you. Everything that was said, I sit with all of you in that. So, but we're going to talk through some of it because the truth of the matter is that it's here and it's not going anywhere. And I make the comparison to when I started at United Way in 2000, they were introducing their first ever CRM, if you can believe that. I wish I could remember the name of it. It started with an N, like Nolan or something. I don't know if anyone used it back then. If you did, it was a popular one. And in the past, what they had used was really like an access database. So that's sort of how it was run in terms of donor data. And I remember going to all of these trainings. I mean, we had 1 to 2 trainings a week as they were rolling it out. And that people were really against this. We were inputting donor data onto the internet. The internet is still, it was in 2000. So think about where the internet was. People were so nervous. We were putting addresses in, we were putting, check amounts, we were connecting, I mean, all sorts of things that were very, very scary. And I was new. So to me, I'm just like listening to everybody around me and just so much upheaval and like really pushing against it. And it created enough people, not just within our organization, but within the greater United Way system that, and if anyone worked at United Way during that time, I would be curious because there's a lot of alumni that they ended up having to kind of pull back because we were used to doing things manually. You would write everything down on a slip of paper. That paper would then get processed by finance. There were all these kind of like checks in place. And by the end of my second year there, and you had a choice whether you wanted to use it or not. That was sort of the point. Like when it first rolled out, you didn't have to use it. By the end of, I think it was my second year, they made an ultimatum. You either use it or you're not working here anymore. And it was a pretty bold move because people were terrified and a lot of people did leave. And I see the same type of thing happening right now. At some point, I believe that organizations will say you either get on board or not. Like, and I think some of these policies around data, donor data and privacy, they are, the heart is there, the reasoning is there, but when they're picked apart and really analyzed, they don't totally make sense because a lot of this donor data is already online. A lot of the prospecting that you do, you're pulling donor data from other organizations. You're going and finding their 990s and saying, what family foundations gave and where can I get that information? Or how can I use that information for my, grant research? Like that's all using donor data. So some of these policies around donor data and privacy, which seems to be the one that people are hung up on the most, they're not sort of created, I would say, with the most sort of education, like thinking through like, where does this data already live online? Yes. Do you want to be contributing to a data leak? No. But depending on where you're inputting the information or how you're using it, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, I'm not sure that like someone mentioned like they have a policy, no donor data goes in. But where did you get that donor data in the first place? Did they donate online? Did they make $100 donation to your organization? They put in all their information somewhere. So it's just kind of thinking through like those nuances. Again, I'm not saying that I don't agree with you all. I agree on the privacy thing. It is a real concern. Environmental, same kind of thing. There's all these arguments around like, could there be an argument that maybe AI is going to help us in the environmental side of things? I don't know yet. That one I worry a lot about. Staff, someone mentioned staff. This is a big one. We are hearing this a lot. When we moved from horse and buggy to cars, whatever it is, you still need someone to drive the car. you still need someone to drive the car. You should not be using AI to replace your staff. You should be using AI and these automations to make your staff more, I guess you could say that they could be more productive, or they can do their job a little bit easier, better. Like you're going to be, I know we hire people in development all the time, and we're expecting them to be a jack of or Jill of all trades. Like we are waiting for them to be able to do everything. They're going to solve all of our development related problems. And at the end of the day, that's just not the case. But with AI, maybe they can be. So you're trying to give them the tools to empower them. Again, feel free to debate this in the chat. I love hearing from people on this. It's so important. So I guess just getting into some of the kind of thoughts, some deeper thoughts around this. AI does not replace stewardship. As specifically, when we're talking about artificial intelligence as it relates to fundraising, it should never replace stewardship. Now, can it help support? Yes. Can it bolster your stewardship? Absolutely. But some principles that we tell every organization, and we do a lot of AI policy development for organizations. And so we're very, very steeped in this work, and we're working with legal teams, and we're working with boards and thinking through like, how do we want to talk about this? The one thing that we always tell people is human oversight, absolutely human oversight on every piece of communication, every piece of content. That is a non-negotiable. Anything that is donor facing, and really internally too, should be reviewed by a human. Protect sensitive information. There are so many ways to use automations and AI and agents without having to put in the personally identifiable information. So instead of using a last name or the street address, you only maybe need these 4 things: their first name, giving level, last gift date. There's a lot of programs out there that will take that CRMs that you're already using, that will take your donors and give them an identifiable number that you can then use some of these other AI platforms. That's how some of the CRMs are getting around the concerns around privacy when they have an AI layered into it. Someone mentioned Razor's Edge, and I'm guessing that that's what's happening. And then, I mean, there's so many things that could potentially be happening, but I'm guessing some of the mix up is in that match, in that. And then staying authentic. We talked about this. AI drafts, humans build relationship. It's just a draft. It's really just to get you to the next step, because maybe that draft would have taken you an hour to 2 hours. Now you have a draft that you did in 5 minutes with all of the notes and the information that you had. But at the end of the day, if you want it to remain authentic, as someone mentioned, and you don't want it picking up ideas from other people that it's scouring for, and you want to make sure the stats are, accurate, at the end of the day, it's just there for it to be drafting. You're building the relationship. So add in the pieces that you think it needs to have in order to be authentic. Security concerned, I guess I mentioned the one about the CRM and United Way, but there was huge concern when people were moving to, I don't know if anyone went through this with your organization, but when people were moving to SharePoint and Google Drive, it was like, no, we will not do this. We will not do this. We will not do this. I don't even think it was 20 years ago, actually. I think that's inaccurate. But now it's like we rely on it. It's impossible to function, it seems like, without a cloud, without the cloud. All of this data is in the cloud. All of this data could potentially be leaked. And then I think just to kind of address a lot of this, it does require governance. And because it is a little bit of the Wild West, not all of the protections are in place already. And so you do have to have protections for your organization: permissions, policies, staff training, review. We're seeing a huge increase in cybersecurity policies being taken out by through insurance. That's a big one right now. So if you haven't looked into that and you are using AI regularly, something you might want to consider. Getting away from all the scary stuff, because again, there's no way that we can sort of avoid feeling what we feel. This is just how it goes when something new like this is introduced. But getting into some of the things that I do recommend, and this is what I recommend working with nonprofits, and there's reasoning for all of this. So if you're thinking about generative AI, I used to be a big chat fan. I have my own personal reasons, but I have found that Claude actually is seemingly less generic in the output of the content. So I don't know if anyone, I know a few people have said that they are using Claude, but I would give it a try. They have 75% off, which I think is phenomenal. They're a social benefit corporation. By the way, I get nothing for promoting this. We've tested all of them, and this is where I sort of sit. And they want to work with nonprofits. I just did a whole thing, webinar training with them. I was just curious. I just listened in because I was curious. They're very pro nonprofit, and you can see it in the way that they're working with nonprofits. They're offering this, all of that. If you've had a good experience with Claude, drop it in. If you've had a bad experience with Claude, I'd love to hear from you. If you've had a really great experience with another platform, please drop it in. Workflow automation and agents. So we'll talk about what this means a little bit in a minute here, but there's something called make.com that a lot of our clients are using to build some of the automations that we talked about earlier. And I'll show you what that looks like. But one of the things that I love is that it's free for a year for nonprofits. And then once you do finish your year with them, their discounted pricing is phenomenal. And we have a lot of clients that are using that. And then I really wanted to start this call talking about this, but I felt like it maybe would throw people off because it's not what we were titled to talk about. But how many people, we talked a little bit about, and I don't really remember, but if you are using a project management system, can you please let me know in the chat which one? And if you are not using a project management system, I would like to know why. Because this is something that we uncovered in a recent survey we did of 1,500 nonprofits, and we were shocked at the number of nonprofits that were not using a project management system like Asana, Monday, ClickUp, Notion, anything to organize. And people were usually using an Excel spreadsheet. So let's hear it. Let's hear it. I've seen Asana. Asana's great. We used to be on Asana Monday. Oh my gosh, Susan, can you unmute and just tell us a little bit about your experience with Monday?
Sure. I'm mainly using it with our capital campaign consulting firm. So they use it, and then we use it to keep track of our potential donors and who's assigned to it, the contact person, the volunteer, what the next steps are, what the deadlines are. It has a lot of information that you'd get from donor search. Sort of all aspects of that. And it's been helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I think any project management system is amazing. Asana, I love. We were on Asana for years. We moved over because of costs. And I hear that a lot. The thing I like about Monday, and I think what they're trying to do is make a play in the nonprofit space, similar to what Salesforce did with CRMs. It's 10 seats are free for project management. That's what PM is. So project management, 10 seats are free for nonprofits. And then you get 33% off of all of the AI features, which is huge because those are very, very expensive on most of these others. And they just released agents built into Monday. So almost everything that I mentioned earlier, you can do within a Monday system. And it is pretty incredible. And it has changed. We are setting clients up with a project management system. They get to choose which one they want to use. Because it's, whether we're doing Monday or Asana or ClickUp, it's all the same. But we're setting our clients up, and we are requiring that they use it if they're working with us, because they cannot really unlock the real benefit of AI unless you're using a system like this. It is hands down every time we set a client up, they're like, oh, I get it. I understand everything you were talking about. And kind of to your point, Susan, like tracking. Have you seen this where like all of this stuff is being automated, like something moves from one box to the next just because it's in Monday? You're not muted. You're okay. Sorry, Susan, did you hear that? Yeah.
Oh, no, if you could just repeat that, I'm sorry.
No, all good. I was just saying, like, have you seen how with the automations, what a difference it makes and how you really benefit from having it all in one system?
Well, it's interesting. Yes, absolutely. But I'm curious I hadn't really seen the AI features as much. I mean, the automation, yes. They set this up. It's their platform that I'm just accessing. So, but now I'm going to explore it more after this webinar, because I'm curious to see what other features I have access to in.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, and I would say, I know, Amy, you're saying you're a small and young nonprofit with a tiny budget, but that would be even more reason to invest in it. Because you're small, you should have it, because setting it up allows you to essentially have three other coworkers. And I'm going to explain what that looks like. So with Monday, you can have all these automations in it. So let's say I'm going to use an example of a mid-sized nonprofit, but I'm using strategy. You could sub in anything. So let's say you have a process where something needs to be approved and it goes from QA1 to QA2. So let's just use that as the example. So let's say when QA1, or well, I'll use this example because it's written here, but when the strategy changes, so let's say you pivot course and you decide, Susan, in your case, or the capital campaign, you all decide, you know what, we're not going to move as quickly as we thought into the public phase of fundraising. We're going to stay in the private for a little bit longer because we're still trying to get these three last gifts. Okay, great. So when that changes, then you're going to then X and fill post copy in the item. And basically what this means, it doesn't look like English there, but this is how you set it up. So Monday.com is as easy as just plugging in and dragging and dropping. It's hard to show you without doing like a live demo, but the idea is that you are able to set up these automations. So if A happens, just cancel out what this says, but if A happens, then B, C, and D need to happen. And so that's an example of okay, the strategy change. So now I need to have 5 tasks for this, 5 tasks for this, and 5 tasks for this. And then we need to develop these pieces of content, and kind of flows from there. You can set all of that up in Monday. Another simpler example is when something goes, let's say, from QA1 to QA2, I want this person to be brought in and to begin reviewing, and they have 3 days to review. And then this person B, let's call them, also needs to review, but they're only going to review after person A reviews. I know I'm spewing a lot out here, but the point is it's that all of that gets built in and it's very easy to set it up.
I'm very curious I'm really curious as to find out if would I automatically have access to that if it's not my platform?
No, you wouldn't.
So
But
I'm
yeah,
getting more of the sort of like the shared Excel spreadsheet version
yes.
that they're having. So now I'm curious if all the information I'm getting from them is generated from AI. This is
Oh, 100%. I bet it is. Every call that they have with you, everything, it's on an automatic, send Susan this as soon as we're done with
exactly.
this. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
That's funny.
Um, okay. And Hillary, how are we doing on time? I just heard my cuckoo clock go off. So we're good. Okay. All right. So then the next kind of layer is with that to set up automation. So we use, and again, this is very technical, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm happy to talk with anyone after about this. But we, as I mentioned, it's free. Make is free for a year. Make gets layered into, it could get layered into a project management system. It can be layered into your website. It could be layered in with MailChimp or Constant Contact. But essentially what it is you're triggering something to, let's say you're triggering something to run daily. It's pulling gifts in your desired range. So let's say we're focused on mid-tier donors. You're pulling the necessary donor information. It's looking up the donor record. It's accessing donor history, pulling out the sensitive information, only providing AI with necessary info, drafting a personalized email that references the mission, gift menu, donor history, and then set up the email in a draft in a fundraiser email account. So this is actually a workflow that we implemented for a client, and it has been phenomenal. They have a 2-person development team, and they're telling us that we're saving them probably 20 hours a month on this type of work. And now that they're in the habit of using this particular workflow, we have about 5 others that are happening simultaneously that are working with donors. Now, Make is its own system. It's its own server. It does work within your CRM. So it is still looking at the information, but you're not just uploading your donor data into ChatGPT. That's not how it operates. So again, this is all very secure, but this is where we get into this AI conversation, where is it are you really just using it to generate an email, or are you using it to do all of these things? And how much time would this save you? Anyone had any questions for me? I know this is a lot, so I'm not expecting you to, like totally take it all in, but I'm hoping to kind of at least pique the curiosity. Anyone here? Has anyone used make.com, I should ask? Okay, integrations have been one of your biggest challenge to automate. Yeah. You're talking about integrating with like your CRM to your MailChimp, Elizabeth. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I think it's just an overall like trend and challenge in the field. A lot of vendors will say, oh, it fully integrates and there's, some nuances to things. So being able to, really get this to work, it sounds simple, or at least it's being pitched to be simple. But then there's always some kind of glitch or nuance. And we have so many different systems speaking to each other and making sure that workflow is set up correctly. So they're speaking to each other in the right order and the right timeline to then kind of kick off the next step in the process. So I think that's something that we're definitely is a challenge for us. We're a little bit of a bigger organization with different platforms that we're using. So we're trying to figure out how to get those all to speak to each other and be a little bit more efficient so we can make the AI piece of it work.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think that is one of the biggest issues right now in this world. And one of the things I'm seeing is that there are so many technologies that have popped up and they're all selling the same kind of thing. And what I like about Make is that it basically takes all of the, it makes it so that you don't need any of those. Like those are all just wrappers. They're all what we call like a wrapper, which means like a candy wrapper. Like they're taking something that already exists and they're creating a wrapper around it in their own for their own use and their own purpose. And so it's like you're layering multiple technologies on. And that can get very tricky because then that's where like hallucinations start. So, for example, to kind of put this in context, is like, if you have a CRM and now all of a sudden they're selling the wealth screening on top of it and they're upselling you on a wealth screening. How many people have had that happen? Yes. Okay. So really, and I hate to be this person, but that wealth screening is really just, I mean, it's essentially its own agent, like your own, that they're pushing out and researching. It's not really doing anything that you couldn't do, one, on your own, or two, that you need to pay huge dollars for. Now, if it's really truly integrated, maybe there's some benefits, but we're seeing clients spend $20,000 on platforms that like they don't need. You don't need it. And what I really like about Make is in some way it's so easy and simple to set up that you really could eliminate a lot of those like extra little tech things that are coming into your what should be sort of, you want to have as basic of a tech stack as possible in order to see the real benefits of AI. Does that make sense? Like why that would be the case?
Yeah, and I think for us, it always goes back to the validity of the data that's going in there and the information. So I always get worried with more automation that, it kind of snowballs. Maybe there's something, a middle initial for a common name, and then we end up grabbing, incorrect information, and then that could snowball. We're getting something out to someone that we shouldn't, or multiple
Yeah.
people. So it's definitely, I think it goes back to that, even before AI, making sure that
Yeah.
information is valid that's going in and we're, having some data cleansing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of organizations spending time and resource to do a data cleanup because of this right now, this moment in time where the data in there is absolutely critical. We saw that also when Salesforce, and CRMs kind of started popping up. That was a big push, and now we're seeing it again for kind of the same reasons. But I will just say too, like my point was like more that the simpler your tech stack is, the less hallucination you're going to have, the less issue, the fewer issues you're going to have potentially. Again, if your data is clean, if the data is what it's supposed to be, then you can add in something like a make.com, which is not necessarily requiring a whole other set of technology that you sign up for, that they're trying to connect, and all of this. It's a little bit more basic. And essentially what it is that they've allowed the consumer, the end user, into the development process. This, what I'm showing you here, has existed for a very long time. It's just now that it's accessible to you and maybe someone on your team to build this. You may say, I don't have any interest in building that, and that's fine. Someone else can do it for you, but it's allowing the everyday user to do it. Whereas in the past, it was all shrouded in this, like, I mean, how many people Did anyone here hire a Salesforce consultant for a lot of money to set up their Salesforce when they adopted, or any CRM consultant? Yeah, I mean that it's the same kind of thing. So now essentially you're taking that back and saying, I know how to do this, I could do this, or I'm going to hire someone at a lot, at a lower cost to be able to do this. How much does make.com cost after the first year? You do get a discount. It's oops, hold on. I don't remember the pricing, but and I can get that to you. We have it, but it's significantly reduced for nonprofits. And we did have someone ask them if they would do 2 years for free, and they did say yes. So yeah. Tracy, you did go through several CRM consultants. Yeah, usually that's the case. And you spend hundreds of thousands on it. I've seen organizations spend so much money on it. And yes, it does get you what you need, but it's because Salesforce kept everything locked down. It was impossible to get what you needed and build it the way you needed to do it. And so it required this whole other economy. I mean, I know people who have sold Salesforce consulting businesses working with nonprofits for millions of dollars because Salesforce it was not easy to get in there and make the changes yourself. So Make changes that, Monday changes that, any of these, Asana changes that now. Built-in tools that can generate the same type of stewardship content regarding mission, donor history. They're all different forms of AI tools. Absolutely. And that's kind of what I was saying before, is like a lot of this is already there. And they have the built-in tools and you can do this. It's just, does it connect with your MailChimp? Does it connect with your Constant Contact? Like, are you using credits to do those and how much does that cost? But absolutely, if your CRM has some of this built in and you can easily get it set up, use it because it's powerful. All right, moving on. Keep in the chat. I love it. Keep going. Keep telling us what you're seeing. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about agents. I'm going to try to keep this very simple, but the agents can live within a few different platforms. You can tell ChatGPT or Claude that you want to start developing agents, and you could have them live within Claude, like a basic plan of Claude. Now, whether or not I would hope that you're on some type of enterprise system or you have that sort of next level of security. You can also have agents are now living within project management systems like Monday, Asana, ClickUp. They have their own agents built in. And you can also you can kind of, on the very like basic level, you could open up a Word doc or a Google doc, and you could say, I'm going to have a development agent, a marketing agent, a grant research agent, and you could keep it offline and then only kind of tap into it when you want to use it. That's sort of like for those that have very, very sort of high level security processes and policies in place, that might be kind of the best place to start. But essentially, if you all remember, we talked about that agents are there, and I can go back to it real quick, are there to, hold on. Is there to make decisions and complete multi-step work. So reviewing donor history, drafting outreach, scheduling follow-up tasks, recommend next step. Think about it as an assistant, someone who's there for you to help you with your work, who knows you really well, who knows your organization really well, who knows sort of your struggles, your problems, because they're going to be looking for those issues. So the ones that we're recommending to our clients, and which I think have been really helpful, is we are recommending that you have a development coordinator agent, a marketing agent, and a grant research agent. These have been the easiest to set up and the easiest to implement. And again, for those concerned about team members, which I am too, and I want to see the nonprofit workforce grow, not shrink. We need more people working in the social sector, not less. Think of these as trainers. Think of these as tools, resources. Think of this for your younger team members who are on that coordinator path to develop their own and build their own and have something that really helps them do more work and be more productive. So a development coordinator agent could take meeting notes. They can develop action items, follow-up reminders, CRM updates they're able to do, whether they do it because they're connected through make.com, or because they do it and they remind you to do it, or they schedule a block in your calendar to do it. There's several ways to kind of approach it. And then gift acknowledgement drafts. And then that draft may go to a coordinator on your team, like a person who's going to be the person responsible to push it to QA1, or maybe So that would eliminate maybe 2 steps in your QA process, which just saves everybody time. Or it could be that it gets pushed right away to you and you take the coordinator out of that because you know that you've trained this agent enough, the coordinator who's a person, sorry, out of that because you've trained that person enough. And so just going to you, and it saves them time to do other related work, prospect research or well screenings, things like that. Any questions on the development coordinator agent? Sorry, Amy recommend as asking about between Monday and Make, I would recommend Monday. I'll come back to that. And then living inside of an enterprise system, I think I said that as it related to security. Is that right, Trina?
I think you were referring to Claude or some other version of.
Oh, yes, just having an upgraded version of Claude. So you're essentially, if you're working within Claude, are you using the highest paid version that is the most protected, or are you using the free version? So that's, I think, what I was referencing. So if it's living within that highest paid version, you have many more protections and options to opt out of things and how they use your data. So that's what I meant. Okay. So the next agent I would recommend you create is a marketing agent. So this marketing agent can live just in a document. Like I said, it can live within Monday and be active and be creating. It could live in Gemini because Gemini is great with graphics. How many people here use Canva? Okay. So we did yesterday a Canva AI for nonprofits webinar just within my team. And we did a lot of talking about this. And essentially, you can set up an agent within Canva where it knows your brand voice, your campaign themes, programs, audience. It produces email drafts that are templated and beautiful and connect right to Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever your Bloomerang, like whatever you're using to send it out. It can create social posts, social calendars. Now Canva has a social scheduling tool, so you can get rid of Buffer, whatever you might be using later. Blog outlines, event promotions, appeal messaging. You no longer have to be, if you have this agent set up, again, wherever it lives, you no longer have to be the graphic designer. Now, for me, this is a huge, huge unlock. And I would say if you are not using Canva, you should be, and you should be setting this up in there. It just cuts down in the amount of time. If you have a marketing department, you can ask them to set up a specific agent for you and create templates so that you don't have to go to them every time you need an email drafted or every time you need a gift acknowledgement that needs to be custom or you need impact numbers or whatever it is. You can ask them to create this. We do this with clients where we set them up in Canva and we do it so that they, again, we want them to have the resources. So the number one thing they say, this saves them the most money. I mean, the most time out of everything that we offer. It's actually unbelievable. Like their mind is blown. They have to do so little when it comes to graphics. So, oh, Elizabeth, you just did this in Canva. Isn't it unbelievable? Like life change. And now Canva, you can do research within Canva. So you can get stats within Canva. I'm encouraging everyone to just keep checking, double checking, but it's using, I think, I think Canva is using the Anthropic network. I have to double check that, but as their background, like what's in the background, again, it's a wrapper almost. That's what I was talking about. So it's built on something. Canva's technology it has its own native technology for the graphics, but in terms of research and looking elsewhere, I believe it's built on Anthropic. Are you connecting to Claude or you're using Canva's own AI? And Amy, I'm happy to share a little bit more about that. I can also share the recording from yesterday if anyone wants it, just so that you can kind of see. It was an hour and we walked everybody through the different steps on how to do that. Yes, please, of course, happy to. And then another huge one is Grant Research Agent. I know a lot of companies are out there selling this again as a wrapper. So like they're taking a technology and they're wrapping it up in their own. I would encourage you to put your money elsewhere, maybe into a project management system, because the truth is that you can do your own grant research. You can set up your own grant research agent, just even in Claude. Ask it to set up to search new opportunities. If you don't have an automation set up, like if you had a project management system like Asana or Monday, you can actually set it up so every morning you wake up and you have a list of the newest opportunities, or maybe you do it weekly or monthly. If you don't have that functionality where it's not automated, just set a reminder for yourself. Tell Claude when you open Claude each morning to remind you, or ChatGPT to remind you to do your grant research or to do the grant research within Claude, and it will do this. It can match eligibility, it can score the fit. We have a nice little framework for this that basically asks it to rank the opportunity. We have a grant research agent set up for every client, and we ask it to rank the fit guidelines. Again, going back to donor privacy, we ask it to, if it has donor data, we want to know what types of donors have donated to that organization and other organizations, and what types of funders and private foundations, all of that. Again, we built that very easily just by chatting within our system. And I'm opening the secret up to you. All I can say is please do not buy a technology if you haven't already, because it's easy to do on your own. And it also can draft responses really beautifully. We've set up boilerplates in there so it knows if it's for this, pull this. If it's for general ops, pull this. If it's for an LOI versus an actual proposal, pull this. Has this unlocked some of the stuff we talked about in the very beginning for you all? Kind of to see the difference.
Lizzy?
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to add that I pulled up my Monday.com account and found they had some new AI suggestions. And I'm going to be going down the rabbit hole this afternoon. It's going to be
Good.
amazing.
Will you please I want to know what you uncover as someone who's just who has used it, but is like kind of starting down that journey. And also ask me questions. I'm happy to answer anything. I
Great.
want you all using this stuff because I just know that it's going to make your life better. Okay, so Claude takes the place of Candid Foundation Center. I'm going to be very delicate in how to answer this. So Candid and Foundation Center are wonderful, wonderful tools. They are doing a great job of keeping up with the times, but it unfortunately, or fortunately, if a foundation is publicly putting out, a grant opportunity, Claude should be able to access it if it's well trained. We still have a subscription to Candid. I would not cancel your subscription to Candid just yet. I don't think that that's the right move. I think it's like connect both. Find a way to have a connection point with both. So have it scouring outside of Candid, but maybe set up an automation within Make where it's also linked to your Candid account and pulling all the opportunities from Candid that are relevant to you, so you don't have to do that. And all of the donor data that's already in Candid, have it pull that in. So that's a great way to use Make while you're also using Claude, and have those things kind of connected, and then have it put the best opportunities at the highest score, the highest fit into your Monday.com or your Asana.com, and give you the due dates and all of the other things. So then that you're also layering the project management piece. All right, everyone. Well, we're kind of nearing the end of our time together. We have about 10 minutes left. And I think, just to kind of bring this all home for you, and I'd love for you to share out if you're already identified. Susan, it sounds like you are kind of thinking this way already. But this week, if there's, I guess it's Thursday. So how about between now and next Thursday? I would love it if you all emailed me and identified one repetitive task that you are going to use AI for and take off your plate. Decide whether automation, AI workflow, or an agent is going to be sort of your next kind of element that you're going to tackle. Try building a simple version, chat with Claude and ask how it can help you do this. And then I want you, over the course of a month, and I would love to hear from you all if you would do this, how much time did it save you? I want to know, where did it save time? If you get stuck, or if you have a question about, could this really help? I would love to hear from you, and I will help you answer it. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to get to some of the chat too. So if you've already identified a project that you're going to dig in, can you unmute and let us know? And then I'm going to make sure you all have my email. But I want you all to be in communication with me too, because the worst thing that can happen is you leave here and you're thinking, that was great, but I'm not going to use any of that. I'd be very sad about that. So if you could at least commit to this number one and maybe even number two, that would be great. Anyone want to share what they're thinking? It doesn't have to be fully flushed either. And Elizabeth recommends instrumental. They're using it just for grant research or using it for other things too. Prospecting.
Yep, so prospecting for grant management as well, so we can automatically filter in reminders and opportunities into Razor's Edge, which has been really great.
And you use mostly Razor's Edge for project management as your system?
It's our CRM, and then we also have Asana, and we use Canva as well. We have a
Oh,
lot
you
of
do
things we
use
use.
Asana. Okay, is Asana or Asana and Razor's Edge connected?
We also use HubSpot, so there's some, like I said, integrations is our challenge right now.
Okay, okay.
Who's talking to
And
who
you,
first?
yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, anyone have something that they're excited to dig into? Oh, Amy, go for it. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much. This is so helpful because we're a young organization, but we're kind of like in a pivotal growth stage. So it's good to, this info is coming exactly at the right time. I'm really excited to hear about Monday.com and the discounts they have, because we have fewer than 10 people. And also I didn't realize that in addition to their project management stuff, they also have CRM. Is that something your clients, I know it's not, designed specifically for nonprofits, like Bloomerang would be. But is that something any of your clients use since it's already plugged into their project management?
We have one client right now who's setting it up. They were not happy with their CRM, so they decided when they implemented Monday.com that it just made sense to try it out. And so far, I've heard really, really great things. I know they invested a lot of money into their CRM, and they do see it as a one-stop shop. So I wouldn't hesitate if you're not already on a system and really embedded in one, absolutely take a look at it because kind of to Elizabeth's point of like all the different integrations, like if you're on HubSpot or Zoho, and then you also have, Razor's Edge, and then you also have Constant Contact or MailChimp, it's like it just will eliminate a lot of that back and forth.
Great, thank you.
And feel free to reach out if you have questions about it. Adrian, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah, so mine is more of a question than an answer because I have a predicament that I've been trying to figure out a regular way to solve this on an ongoing basis. Um, we use Donor Perfect as our donor software, our donor CRM, but all of our volunteer activity is managed in our Salesforce database. I manage both development and volunteerism, and so I never have a full picture of all of the ways that, and we have many volunteers who are also donors, and how they come into the agency and what their trajectory is. I never have a full picture of all the ways a person is engaging with the agency, and you know twice a year we do a reset and we check, is this person volunteering? Are they donating? But it's done manually, and that is really
It's,
old school. So I'm
yeah,
trying to figure out how to there must be a way to integrate using AI, and I don't really know the answer to that, but it would
I think
really.
Make would be a good one, make.com to build an integration. And I would actually open up Claude or Chat or whatever and put that in there and ask if Make would be a good option for that or if there's any other proposed solutions on that. But I'm also happy to help you kind of think it through. That is like one, I would say the connection between, and I don't know why I mean, when Salesforce started working with nonprofits, I don't understand why they did not solve for this in it. We have clients all the time that are like, I have people who are participants, who are volunteers, who are donors, and there's no way to sort of like have that thread built in where you're like, where on this journey are they? And I don't really understand why they haven't figured that out. But I am positive that there is a way that you could use Make to kind of build those connections and then help you with a workflow that would allow you, it's almost like I think you have to think about it as more campaigns. Like you have to sort of set up campaigns for each of their journeys, and then maybe that can help you. Like, I don't know. We'll think about that one for you. But I'm happy
Yeah.
to brainstorm with you.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Yes, and Elizabeth said they're actually working on that integration too, and how they can use AI to match up records. Yeah, it is that one is really, really tough because you want to communicate with people differently, but also the same, but also, it's like
Right.
everybody's on their
And
own
you want to have
journey.
their full picture. Like
100%, yes.
how are all the ways that people are engaging in our work, giving,
Yeah,
volunteering? Yeah.
absolutely.
Hey, does he have a
Uh,
degree in? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to
No, I
ask
just want
related
to
to.
mention
Sure.
I have a business, a for-profit client who uses Salesforce and has used Microsoft products. I think it's called Power BI to create dashboards that bring in the data from Salesforce and all Salesforce, QuickBooks, and all of their other, and I guess they can be customized for any of the programs that a business or nonprofit uses. I don't know what the expense associated with that is, but they have everything merge. And so everything merges from individual software into Power BI. And obviously, the big caution over and over is like garbage in, garbage out. So everything, all of the data in the individual apps needs to be good. And then it goes into this dashboard that's super informative and kind of exactly what you're talking about. So I can connect you by email. Again, I don't know what the cost is because this is a business, but there might be a nonprofit version of that would work for you. But it's solving the exact same problem.
And
Oh,
actually,
and Casey says she uses it.
I was going to say is that some of these project management systems, Monday, ClickUp, Asana, have unbelievable dashboards that can be built, sort of similar to what you're talking about. So again, if it's connected, but and I've heard really great things about Power BI as well, so that it could be a great solution. And Monica, I was just going to say with the CRM and the Zap workflows, so Zapier and Monday Make are competitors. Zapier tends to be much more expensive than Make. And when we were looking at like after the year, how much Make is versus Zapier, we were told that it was 70% less than the Zap because you pay per Zap essentially. So no, you're not paying for a Zap? Okay. Then maybe it's a different, maybe you're on a different plan.
They
Do you know how?
have a tremendous nonprofit discount,
Oh,
which is what we're
good.
on. But learning the workflows, a couple of the things have been a little challenging. But overall, 95% of it was very easy to set up, and it transfers the information within a couple of seconds once a payment is made. So,
Great.
yeah. But
Okay,
I
because
found it to be very inexpensive, very, very inexpensive.
good, because when we talked to them about a year ago, and I mean, maybe it's just who we spoke to, but they said that their nonprofit program, is like, I don't know, it was like 25% off or something like that. So that's good to know. I'm going to check back in with them. Anything? Oh, Elizabeth, you use Zap too. You do. Oh no, you use Power BI.
Power BI, yeah. One of
Okay.
the, I know we're right on time, but something else that we've been exploring is Snowflake and using that for integrity of donor data. So very much in its infancy, but it's something that can kind of bring all the systems together potentially and protect donor data more than some of the other AI
Yeah.
options. So I don't know if you've experienced that, something else for everyone to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there are so many technologies out there that it's almost overwhelming. And so it is a little bit of word of mouth. Um, we're right at time. I'm so happy to have connected with all of you. This has been phenomenal, for me at least. Hope that you gain something from it. I will send these out, so you have this 20 fundraising tasks that AI can help with. I think we've covered a lot of these, but feel free to take a screenshot of this. And I am going to, yeah, oh, just pull up our connection page. And so you all have that as well. And it has been such a pleasure being with all of you and getting to hear your stories. And I've learned a lot too. So I am really grateful for the opportunity. And thank you so much, Hillary.